Hey, what's up? This is the Full Circle Music Show. This is Seth Mosley, and we thank you for being here with us again. Today we've got an awesome guest, Ben Stennis, country songwriter and producer. Has had cuts on Parmalee, Jason Aldean, High Valley, Ronnie Dunn, Justin Moore, Swan Brothers, Dallas Smith, and many others to be announced in the very near future. But Ben has a phenomenal story for us today. We're titling it From Obsession to Obsession, and you'll see what I mean by that. But there's a lot of really, really good info and inspiration for people maybe wanting to break into the music business, people wanting to become songwriters or artists. He's worn a lot of different hats, so he has a lot of wisdom to share. So stick around, take notes, listen up close on this one. This is one you're not going to just want to skip over. But before we jump into that, we have announced our first music production mastery course is up online, and it is available for purchase. We walk you through the journey of a song from start to finish, exactly how we do the production of it. It's called Music Production Mastery. You can either go to musicproductionmastery.com or you can text 44222 and put the word produce and text it to 44222, and we'll send you info on that. So again, text produce, PRODUCE, to 44222, and we will send you info on that. So let's jump into the interview. We got Ben Stennis in the house.
What's up, man?
One of my favorite songwriters, favorite people, actually.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy man.
No, dude, I'm stoked to be out here, man. I appreciate you having me up here in your sweet studio to do this.
Yeah, man. So why don't you just run us through your story a little bit? Where are you from? How'd you get into music?
Man, I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. I'll give you the condensed version. My whole life, from the time I was 5 years old on, I knew I wanted to be a stunt man. And as crazy as that sounds, all my friends, family knew I was going to go do stunts. Even in college, I would practice high falls.
Wait, you're saying stunts,
man? Like movie stunts, like stunt
like
work.
The Daredevil thing.
Like high falls, car crashes, that kind of stuff. Like
I
legit, that's literally
that.
what I was, that was my career path. I mean, literally from the whole time in acting. And so I remember hiring a guy at a gym in Statesboro, Georgia, so that I could use the facility's gymnastics pads to take the pads outside and climb up this tower and do high falls, like 3- and 4-story high falls to practice. We'd practice at night after my shift at the bar, getting hit by cars. This is honest truth. The last time we did it, I went through the windshield, and I was like, well, I probably shouldn't do that again. But that's, again, I was 19 years old then. But man,
all this is complete. You're not making any of this.
No, this is dude. Honestly, if anybody that knew me growing up, that's all I cared about doing. I remember going down dirt roads down to Statesboro, and getting my friends to drag me like behind the bumper on a rope. I thought I was just so consumed by stunt work. That's all I wanted to do. And then I started a band in college, and I was done, man. Wow. It literally was like that. A dude in my freshman year in college, I went to his dorm room one night after going out, and I saw him on the bed, and average looking dude, but had about 5 girls sitting around him. And I was like, teach me how to play guitar. And so that's probably the worst reason to get into music. That's definitely the reason I got into music. And he taught me some chords, and 4 months later we had our first gig, and it was horrendous. We had no business playing that show, and we got slightly better each show. And I just really fell in love with playing and writing and all that. That kind of got me launched and reset my mind career-wise, and got me to move to Nashville right when I got out of college.
So you went from one form of inflicting harm on yourself,
yes,
to music, which is...
Music is more
sort of
the heart and the soul beat down.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
all the no's and you're not good enough. The stunt work is like the physical beat down. I was going to say I don't know which one is worse, but I do, and it's the music part with the dude, it's such an emotional thing, man. We invest so much in our songs, and you take them into, say you take them into somebody and you're just sitting there like waiting for their awesome response, and they kind of like shrug like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a hit to me, and you're like, you don't know anything.
Yeah. So, man, that's crazy. I want to hear more about this stunt thing.
I know. Let's shift gears and talk about stunts.
Yeah,
man.
I just want to talk about stunts this whole show. What 5 minutes on this, but
sure.
What got you into that? Were you just into like movies and that kind of stuff?
I was super into movies, but for some reason when I would watch movies, all I cared about was like the car chase scenes, the guys that were falling through the windows, the guys that were set on fire. And this was kind of back in the day before This is like in the, I guess, 90s. So it was before all the CGI stuff had taken over. And there was all the stuff you saw in the movies were still people doing those stunts. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And so I would go outside. We had a second story window in my house and we had a tree near it. And I would jump from our second story window, and the tree was just big enough to hold up my body weight, but it would bend and it would carry me down to the ground. And so I'd practice doing that out of our second story window. Then I practiced like setting mattresses outside and doing first story high falls on there.
What is a high fall?
So basically a high fall, you know, in the movies where they fall off the towers or the buildings or whatever, and you see them like flailing their arms.
Yeah.
And if you notice, right before they land, which they usually cut away, the stunt person flips over on their back. So you have to have a lot of core strength, but you turn your body and you land on the pad on your back because you don't really want to land face first or sideways. You can get really hurt. So
the trick is to land on your back and
to have a nice pad underneath you. And mattresses on a first story window, second story is not a nice pad. I learned that quickly.
And you don't hurt yourself.
I mean, you do. I mean, those guys get banged up so much. I mean, they, you know, and again, you know, now so much of what you see in movies is computer generated, and it's really cool. But it's, you know, we all see what's real and what's not, and it really was just falling in love with what those guys did. It's kind of like with music. I was always more interested at the end of a music video on CMT or GAC as to who wrote the song. And this was back in, I'd sit in high school for hours, man, in front of the television. And I'm trying to think I think we got GAC back in Augusta and probably CMT too, but whichever one I watched, I would sit there for hours after football practice and just watch videos. Yeah. And I'd wait for the songwriters' names to come on. And I just loved country music and pop music growing up. This is long before I even thought I could ever have a career writing it.
Who'd you grow up listening to? What were some of your influences?
I would say like on the R&B side, my dad always had like Otis Redding, like Sad Song and I've Been Loving You, like all that stuff, man. It's like Dad had that and like Steppenwolf and CCR. So on that side of music, that's kind of what I grew up on. Then on country, man, I was definitely a 90s country child. I remember my brother came and had like a single of this guy named Garth Brooks' song Thunder Rolls. And I remember up in his girlfriend's house in her bedroom, he's like, you gotta hear this song, and put it like in a boombox and played it. And I was just like, who is this guy? This is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. And you know, I think after that I just got so obsessed with country music. So it was obviously Garth starting out, but man, Mark Chestnut, Shenandoah, Diamond Rio, Restless Heart, Black Hawk, obsessed with Little Texas, dude, you name it, man. Doug Stone, Doug Supernall, all those cats from the 90s, man, is like, that was kind of back in the day, man, and when it felt like it was more about the voice and less about the look. Because if you look at these dudes, man, like these look like guys that would come like dig, you know, with the backhoe and dig a footer on your house, but also could sing country song. These are just like normal middle America dudes back then, like Mark Chestnut and freaking Joe Diffie. None of those guys were supermodels. They didn't give a crud about having abs and, you know, biceps and all that stuff. It's like, and they didn't care about their image as much. They cared about good country music. And so that's the crud I grew up on, man. And that was like all lyric based. And dude, you know, you were in high school and you were relating to songs about people going through divorce and being broke and drinking problems, even though you in reality, at least in my life, hadn't gone through that stuff. I was too young to have gone through any of that stuff, but you could still feel that with other people. And I think that's what drew me into country music, is the story of it.
Yeah. So have there been any of those guys that you grew up listening to that you've been able to kind of work with or write with since you moved to Nashville?
Yeah, man. Oddly enough, like one of my favorites, and it's maybe a little more an obscure reference, is a guy named Paul Brandt. I loved Paul Brandt, man. He had a killer song, a couple that were, I think, either number ones or top tens, like a song called My Heart Has a History, and then a song called, it's either called I Will or I Do, I'm trying to remember. But I got a chance with Brad Rimple from High Valley, brought me in on a ride with Paul, and this is a while back, and it was just a cool experience, man, because it's like I just grew up listening to those cats. And same thing with like Terry McBride. I love McBride and the Ride. Yeah. And Terry and I have written a handful of times, and just a great guy. And my favorite thing writing with Terry is he'll, for about 2 hours, usually it's easy to kind of shift him off into 90s country stories, being on the road with, you know, McBride and the Ride, but like Brooks and Dunn, because Terry played, after McBride and the Ride ended, he played bass for Ronnie and Kix for years. And I swear, I think he had close to 20 something cuts or more with Brooks and Dunn. I think either 10 number ones or 10 top tens, 10 singles at least of them. So I always love hearing those stories, and those guys usually don't mind telling them, which is cool.
Totally. Well, what is that experience like, having kind of grown up listening to Paul Brandt and now you're writing songs with these dudes?
Man, it's so cool. I thought, and some of these experiences, like, and we just got off the road with Darius and got to go out and write with him about a month ago. Me and my boy Blake Bollinger. You know, and obviously I grew up listening to Hootie and the Blowfish. I mean, I think I was in maybe middle school or freshman in high school when, you know, they really blew up. And I think back then, had Ben Stennis back then gotten any of the opportunities he has now to write with these guys and kind of be with these artists, I would have really wigged out and gurmed. But now it's like, you know, it's different now because this is our profession. This is what we do. And it's super cool, but you don't fan out though. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's because you kind of get in the room and you're writing, you're like, okay, this is a normal dude, man. He's out here doing his thing. He's got a family. He wants to write a killer song, and it kind of takes some of the pressure off you a little bit as well.
So they've been pretty disarming, I guess, in that way.
Yeah, but in a very cool way, a very relaxed way. I definitely have gone into writes nervous sometimes writing with some of these, you know, artists and, you know, bigger writers and that kind of stuff. But pretty much, man, I'd say 9 times out of 10 when you get in there, it's like they're so laid back and cool, and you know, and it lets you just kind of relax and naturally do what you do with writing and not get all gurmy and like, you know. So
you're not like writing a song while they're laying on a massage table and like getting pampered.
No, man, I've never had that experience, man. I honestly love getting those opportunities to write with these artists, and because it's like, man, it's like they want to contribute just as much as I do. You know what I mean? I haven't had the experience of, and you hear about it when you're like, well, you know, you were in the room with an artist, you know, did they really help? And, you know, I think that generally comes maybe from, I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of times when people start knocking other people, it's maybe because they weren't on that particular trip, or, you know what I mean? It's all kind of based on, and I've caught myself doing it too. It's like, it's based on, you know, you kind of find yourself, there's envy and jealousy and that kind of stuff. And I found myself before knocking other people's things they had going on, when in reality, had I had a song on that record or written with that artist, I would have totally been like, oh man, it's the greatest thing you've ever heard.
Wow.
And it's like, we find, you know, in our business, it's easy to get caught up in that world, but I try to pray about it a lot of like, you know, I don't want to be envious. I want to be happy for people. And I think it's like kind of staving off some of that helps or whatever.
That's good. So what was the impetus, or when did you move to Nashville? When did you go to college here? What kind of brought you here?
Man, I actually went to college at Georgia Southern down in Statesboro. I got a degree in business management, and I recorded a demo in Waycross, Georgia, and literally it was a trailer studio that hooked up to a truck. It was a mobile recording studio. This guy named Jim Bickerstaff.
That sounds awesome.
And dude, it was great. And so he literally, I did like a 5-song, we didn't call them EPs back then, but you know, just a demo to sell at shows, because I was still doing the artist thing back then before I had to put a bullet in that. And he's like, man, he told me one night, he's like, dude, he's like, if you really want to pursue this, he's like, you need to move to Nashville, and you need to move and decide that you're never leaving till you're successful. And he just said basically never leaving. Yeah. And he said that's the only way you're going to be successful. And I remember thinking I was like, all right, well, I'll move to Nashville. And I just started writing songs and all that crap, and they were horrendous. Like, they were terrible songs. And they're all probably at least like 6-minute ballads. It was great. And, but you know, when he told me that, he's like, it's probably going to take you 10 years to get your first major cut. And I was like, man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I was like, I'll get up there and I'll do some writer nights. I'll get discovered, and, you know, maybe a year in I'll have a record deal and blah, blah, blah. And man, dead gum if he wasn't right. Almost to the day you know. Yeah. It was literally 10 years of being up here before I got my first Jason Aldean cut.
Wow.
Yeah. So I moved to Nashville in 2000 actually, and started that whole grind of go getting a job waiting tables. The first night I was in town, I played a midnight writers round at Douglas Corner Cafe. It was me, one other dude, and then Mervin, who owns and runs the place. Yeah, at midnight, and I played one song, and and I thought it was great. And there was nobody there, man. It was like the sound, Mervin running sound, and like one other dude that was like drinking beer and not paying attention to my sweet ballad. Yeah. And then from then on, man, it just kind of started plugging away. Put a bunch of years into the artist thing, and you know, and that kind of got me to where I am today. But man, total of 16 years so far here in town.
Wow. So walk through those 10 years, because I mean, when did you, I know you're married, you got kids now. When along the lines did you meet your wife? When did you guys get married? Was she with you that whole time? Or?
No, man. Honestly, I was in a duo called Waycross. Probably the first 7 or 8 years I was up here. Yeah. And I was really just committed to doing the artist thing. And we were doing shows, and we were writing, but writing within just me and the dude I wrote with, and just writing for us. And probably 2007, I think it was 2007, we got the opportunity to sign like a little record dealish with Dreamcatcher Records, which is Kenny Rogers' label he had at the time. To me, I was like, okay, this is it. I've been here 7 years, and really 7 years of really pursuing the artist thing, whatever that meant, which is basically a bunch of no's. Put a single out, put a video out on CMT and all that, and just thought maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. This is what God has for me right here. This is what I've been working towards. And man, probably after about 6 or 7 months, the single being out, we just weren't getting any traction. And it's kind of made sense after that, after all the years of trying and getting close but not quite making it. I was like, all right, maybe this is what God has for me. And so kind of broke up the band thing in 2007 or 2008, I'm trying to remember. And that was really when I started shifting towards writing full time. Was about 2008, and writing for other people. And probably about a year before that is when I met my wife, when I was doing the whole Waycross thing. So we've actually been, together about 10 or 11 years, but married about 9 years.
So she's been through a lot of that, a few years of...
A couple years of the artist thing, and then, all the writer stuff.
Grinding it for another few before you got your Jason Aldean cut.
Sure.
So, I mean, what is it in those 10 years that kind of... I mean, because are you waiting tables? Are you working another job? How are you making the whole thing even work?
Yeah, man, I waited tables for 2 years. I was miserable, and I think everybody should do it because it shows you how you should treat people, because people are not generally nice to waiters and kind of treat you like second-class citizens. Other people are awesome, but I think everybody should do it so you can learn how to treat people. Then I started a car detailing business where I'd go to like people's business and houses. I had like a 60-gallon water tank in the back of my Jeep and a pressure washer, and I would do that. And then every night was either practicing my banjo or guitar, or out at a writer's night, or playing a show with Ted, the guys in Waycross with. And that was literally every night except for Sunday, we were doing either practicing or writing or doing a show or playing a writer's night. And that was pretty much close to that whole first 10 years, probably at least the first 8 years of doing that. And it's a very overwhelming grind.
Yeah.
And that's not everybody's road. That was my road. Some people come to town, man, and start crushing a year or two in. Man, that was God's road for me, and it is to grind it out, man. And I've always just thought, man, if you really want to do it, do whatever you have to do to be responsible and take care of your family, but do what you have to do to still do your dream and to write, and do whatever you have to do to still leave time to write. And that's if you're, getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning to work some job that you don't love, but it allows you to write during the day, or you work during the day and you make sure you have writing appointments at night. That kind of thing.
That's good. So, I mean, you talked a little bit about the struggles that you've faced along the road to where you are now. What was that like when you got your first Jason Aldean cut?
Dude, it was crazy. I was literally at the gym on the leg press, doing leg presses. A guy named Ed Williams, who was I was in the process of signing a pub deal at Bug Music, and Ed Williams called me and he's like, hey man, I think you just got a Jason Aldean cut. And I about dropped the weights on my legs, because so many years, and for that to be my first cut was me and Thomas Rhett and Jaron Boyer, and this is all three of our first cut. Wow. It was pretty overwhelming because, man, when you work so hard for something so long and you're told so many years, no, this isn't good enough, keep trying, that kind of stuff, and finally to land one on that record. And that was a record that ended up going 3 times platinum. It was a My Kind of Party record, and really set the stage and kind of was like the catalyst for like pushing everything that's kind of going on now. Even though that was 6 years ago, that was definitely the first thing that kind of started getting me going. I signed my first pub deal after that. I mean, honestly, that record was such a blessing. It paid for my daughter to get born, helped us get a minivan, a down payment on a house, things that God knew that I needed. And his timing was perfect, because that song and the timing of it came at a time where we had medical bills and all kind of things stacking up, and it was such a huge blessing to be on that record and to actually make money and be able to pay some of that stuff off.
Wow. You talked a little bit about how some people move to town and it seems like they're a year or two into it and they're just getting picked up, everything's a yes. But more often than not, I think a lot of people have that as a perception, but they don't even realize, because we've been writing together for the last few years. I had no idea you were even here for 8 years doing the artist thing before that. Yeah. So people just don't know the backstory.
They don't, and it's weird. I kind of don't talk about it, because in reality, man, most people only know me from probably the past 4 or 5 years, maybe even the past 2 or 3, because really, man, is like a lot of the stuff, like the singles that are out now and the cuts and stuff, that's only been over the past 2 to 3 years, and really this year and stuff. And so I actually don't mind that they don't know that I've been here this long.
Well, that's what's really cool about it, is it doesn't matter how many years of, and I'm not even going to call it failure, because I had those seasons too of like, no, and I don't call it failure. It's just, you win or you learn. And as soon as you get your first cut, or as soon as you have your first big win, everybody like associates you with that. They don't associate you with the previous 10 years.
You don't exist until that happens.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden you're cool.
Yeah.
I was talking to my publisher this morning, actually, on the way in, and we were having a discussion of like just how when you start to have some success, all of a sudden people think your other songs are cool, and all of a sudden you're funnier, and all of a sudden they want to write with you, and it's just interesting to kind of see some of that stuff. And it's, I mean, I'll play the game. I'm cool with it. But it's to go into it understanding, seeing that, knowing that side of the business too, man. It's like, it's just a reality of it as well, man. It's like, man, I'm not going to get upset because somebody didn't want to write with me 2 years ago all of a sudden wants to write with me. I totally understand. Why would they have wanted to write with me 2 or 3 years ago and I haven't proven myself, Yeah. And as far as those years, man, that, like I said, I don't look at them as a failure either. I look at them as I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I mean, there's hundreds and thousands of hours of preparation that I needed to learn, and I'm still learning. And even after my first cut, I was so green, man, going in and writing over at Bug, and it was definitely an education. They, Sarah Johnson, Ed Williams, those guys over at Bug, man, it was, they were pretty rough on a lot of stuff that I brought in when I started there. And at the time, you're like, man, why are they being so brutal? But looking back now, even though we clashed, it's like, I get it. Like they were iron sharpens iron type thing.
Yeah.
They were trying to build me into a better writer. And it's not a fun or easy process when you're told that's not good enough. You can do better. Listen to what's this record and tell me if your song's better than that. And listening and being like, crap, it's not, that process too, man, of like, even after you've had some cuts, realizing I'm still not good enough and I've still got to get better. And having a publisher that's willing to, kick you in the gut and heart punch you a little bit on your songs, it sucks in the moment, but looking back, it's going to always make you better.
Yeah. Well, that's a new angle. We think of publishers a lot of the time as sort of being your cheerleader, your champion, or your, keep going, keep you motivated, whatever. But often that doesn't serve writers well, because they just are going to hear, you're awesome all the time, and it's disillusionment.
Well, especially when you're starting out, man. It's like, and I consider 2010, 2011 me starting out. Even though I'd been here, doing the artist thing and writing for yourself is nothing like all of a sudden writing 5 days a week and trying to land cuts on other artists.
So that's a great point. I'd love to talk on that.
Sure.
What's the difference there? Because a lot of people maybe listen to the show are still trying to kind of define, am I an artist? Am I a writer? Am I both? What are those two? Because it's two entirely different hats that you have to wear.
Sure.
Can you talk about what the difference is between you as an artist and then you having to learn new skills or traits as a writer?
Man, when I was doing the artist thing, I found out that I was a lot easier on myself on lyrics, and I wasn't near as harsh on myself. And I didn't realize that until I got in the room with these great writers. And you're like, oh, okay, so this song today, with all the 300 or 400 writers that are in town that are signed, our song today is going to have to beat out all of their submissions for this one record where there's maybe 1 or 2 spots for an outside song. And when you start looking at it like that, you can't just like settle for an okay line. And I'm saying when you're out of the game and you're not, say, in the whole publishing world and all that, when you're kind of, say you're in another little town here in America doing your thing with writing, don't be easy on yourself. I was very lenient on lyrics and melodies because, like, okay, well, I'm the artist. I can say this. People understand. It's like, in reality, man, it's like you need to be listening to like your competition somewhat. And for me as a writer, as an artist, I didn't do that. As a writer, it was eye-opening seeing what I'm going to have to do to get songs cut on other people's records. Because as a writer, you have to be better than what that artist is writing with his co-writers that day. If that makes sense.
So talk a little bit about that. I mean, because I'm sure that's changed even in the last 7 years, just in terms of artists cutting outside songs.
Yeah, they're not as many. It doesn't seem like. Man, I'm still I still think like the best song wins. I still feel that way. Because honestly, man, a lot of the songs we got cut this year, our Jason Aldean, Kelsey Ballerini duet, that's an outside song. Our Justin Moore cut we just got on his new record, that's an outside song. Our Parmalee cut, we got Parmalee single, outside song. Our Ronnie Dunn single, currently outside song.
So they do happen.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just a believer if it's a great song, I still think it wins. Now, that being said, on the Parmalee record, I have another song on there that I co-wrote with Matt and Barry from Parmalee, and I love it just as much. And I'll say our working relationship with High Valley. Mm-hmm. I truly think that had I not been co-writing with you and Brad for these records, I don't know what I would pitch for High Valley. Mm-hmm. For me, having Brad in the room and you in the room as a producer to kind of guide what works for that particular band really helps when you're writing the song. It's a massive advantage to have the artist in there saying, that's not what I would say. That's not how I would say it. So I think that aspect of it, man, is a tremendous advantage.
Yeah. So taking off your artist hat, transitioning more into the career songwriter hat, what are some of the characteristics or traits that you've had to kind of learn or adapt to along the way?
Man, the biggest thing for me, as far as there's nothing to do with like talent or anything like that, is the persistence, man. And I'm saying persistence on the idea of like, I'm not going to quit, I'm not going to give up, but also the persistence of I'm going to get better at my instrument, I'm going to get better, tighter hooks, tighter melodies, that kind of persistence of always wanting to learn more. The other thing I would say, man, that I've had to like kind of learn, man, is, and I've gotten into it about 4 years ago, was production, man. I mean, we have to, in our world now, man, as like writers, we have to be able to write hooks, melodies, build the tracks, the drums, I mean, what other parts, do the vocals, comp them, tune them, mix. It's kind of a necessity now, man. And I kind of saw over the past years, probably 5 to 7 years like you described, that's really where things have trended. And man, if you're complacent, you're going to get left behind. So a bunch of us started getting into that track world a handful of years ago. And it's definitely paid off for the fact that you stay current, but you're also, when you're building the stuff, and you know, because dude, you're one of the most ridiculous producers I've ever worked with. I sing your praises on a weekly basis to my co-writers, and it's like, we gotta freaking get in the room with Seth. And awesome. Dude, I mean, every time you work, man, I'm like sitting behind you like, man, I've got to get better. It's like, how the crud did he just build this ridiculously sick track and help write the song all in this period, and now we're doing vocals, and the tracks like sounds amazing all within this 1 day period. I'm not there to your level yet, but I'm working on it daily. But man, I think that end of it, of being willing to sit down and put the hundreds of hours into learning production in your off time while you're not writing, until the point where you're good enough to have a rig in your room and start doing tracks while you're there. Yeah. Because then you can really, really create something fresh that's you, if you're actually the one producing the tracks, and you're not just going into a session and saying, hey guys, here's my iPhone work tape. Let's hear your interpretation over the next 30 to 40 minutes that we have to cut this one song. Right. And after you've just done a session before that, and a session, and not to knock those guys are amazing, but I feel like if you want to have something unique, you kind of need to build it from the ground up. Yeah.
Well, you just hit on a really big point, that it's time for writing, and this is one of the, in my opinion, one of the unfortunate parts about how the music business has changed, is artists are touring so much nowadays, because that's where they make their living. That's where they're feeding their family. That's that's where they're getting paid, because record sales and streaming and all of it, so they're touring so much, so they have such limited time, so they're only going to write with a handful of writers. And those handful of writers better be able to deliver in a 2-hour or 3-hour window. Yeah. So being able to have either A, tracks built, or B, be able to build the track as you're going is pretty important.
Man, I'd say having them built. I mean, just recently, doing this, and, I'll just bring up Darius because we're just out with him, and Blake Bollinger, who's a co-writer of mine, I love Blake. Crazy talented producer. Just programmed all the stuff on Jason Aldean's new record, has a song on there, has the Parmalee song with me, the Justin Moore. I mean, he's one of the guys that I've kind of, over the past 4 or 5 years, we were like, hey man, let's build a catalog together. But anyway, that all pushed out the side. We probably spent, before our Darius we knew we were going out with him 2 days out in St. Louis. It was him, Michael Ray, and Dan and Shay, and we knew we were going to have a window of 2 hours maybe to write with him. And so we had basically 3 or 4 tracks ready, and kept it all in the MIDI so we could adjust keys within the ride if we needed to, but had them like ready to go even like gain staging, a little bit of mixing. So when we put him through those monitors, little portable rig we brought on his bus, we want them to be excited and hear that. But also have hooks and some lyrics and some verses and some chorus ideas already hashed out, and to utilize your time. And I think those guys appreciate that too, because man, they've got such a short window. Man, you know, they've got to go on stage in a few hours. You know, they don't have 6 or 7 hours to, hey man, you know, let's bust out a guitar and let's just start from scratch. I mean, some of the guys do, man. It's like, but my experience has been, it's better to go in prepared, and it makes them a lot more eager to work with you as well. And it takes away some of the awkwardness of not knowing these people yet. When you're like, hey, here's 4 different things. Let's choose something if you love any of these, and if you don't, we'll start from scratch. But if you're fired up about any of these, and we ended up writing 2 with Darius in a couple-hour period, and turned out pretty sick. And I love doing it like that. And then with High Valley, we take these writing trips, and it's a little different because we block off 3 and 4 days to work 6 or 7 hours each day on that. And I love that end of it as well.
And I'd say that's probably a rarity for most artists, and even for High Valley. Now that they've gotten signed and singles going crazy, their time has shrunken, you know.
Oh God, Brad! I mean, dude, Brad.
So.
I actually wore this really ridiculously low V-neck in honor of Brad from High Valley. Yeah, dude, Rimple, dude, he's never home, man. It's like, dude, they're blowing up so huge. And by the way, Seth, that record is so sick, man. This is stuff I've heard off it is freaking amazing. Get my low V-neck.
I mean, I'm Instagramming your V-neck as we are doing this podcast. So.
All right, this is like Rimple low right here.
I love that.
Thanks, man. Thanks for getting that. But yeah, dude, I think, man, you know, with our business changing so much, it's like we're all like, when I say scrambling, I'm not scrambling. We have to like figure out different ways to make money. So it means touring a lot more for artists. And for us as writers, it means singles. You know, I mean, album cuts are really, really cool, but in reality, they're not really going to make us any money. You know, I mean, they'll go back to our recoup with our publishers, but we have to have those singles out. And the artists have to have big singles to be able to draw a crowd to tour. So
Sure. So talk a little bit about that, because that's always a little bit of a... I don't know what you call it, black magic or something, but how do you land the single versus just getting the album cuts?
Man, I was hoping you'd tell me that.
That's like a whole class right there.
Man, gosh, man, I let stuff go, man, honestly. For me, I don't know how to get singles. I mean, the singles we have right now is just a blessing, and God's good, and I look at it as little miracles, because it's so hard, man. If there's inner working politics that happens to get singles, I don't know how to do it. I'm not sure if I did, I'd want to be a part of it. I don't want ever a song of mine to be a single if it's not the best song on the record. And I've understood on stuff like, I've heard other songs or records I've been on. I was like, man, Jason Aldean, Flyover States. I was like, I get why. I love I Ain't Ready to Quit, which is my song on there. But I hear Flyover States and I'm like, all right, I get that. I get why that's a huge single. You know what I mean? But man, honestly, I think the only way to do it is, once you get the cut, is just be thankful, thank God. And this, man, I've always just... Not that I'm the greatest Christian in the world, but I have really tried to pray and say, all right, God, if I need this single, if my family needs this single, I know you'll give it to me. And if I don't need it, then I don't need it. And this has been a blessing right here. And I was actually reading a devotional this morning. I think, man, as Christians, man, is like we always, and I found myself this all the time, like I always think, okay, God's preparing me for this big, massive platform and this, and that equals me needing to be successful in music. And man, it's like, it hits me all the time. I read My Utmost for His Highest, and I'm like, crud, I read it all the time. It's like, God's not interested. His plan for us is not, success is not His end goal for us. Relationship and whatever His kingdom plan is His end goal for us. And so for us as writers, if we are successful, there is some worldly success tied in with that. So it's kind of hard when I read those devotionals, but I realize, I'm like, all right, God, you're going to take care of me no matter what. If that means this is an album cut, if that means a single, if it's not, it's like, I just want to trust you. And that gives me peace. You know, that gives me peace in the midst of these storms, because we all want the single, man. I mean, there's 2 records that we're on right now that we're in the running for singles, and I just try to push it aside, man, because I really do think, man, for all of us, man, is like, if we need it, God's going to give it to us. And if somebody else needs it, God's going to give it to them.
So much of it is just out of the control of what writers can do.
Man, for me, and I can only speak for me, when I'm done writing and producing the song, or writing and someone else to produce the song, once it's out of my hands, dude, it's out of my hands.
Yeah.
I can, all the fretting and texting back and forth with your writers are like, man, we're gonna get the single. It does no good.
Yeah.
I mean, literally does no good.
You're literally just wasting time.
You're wasting time,
Yeah.
and you're stirring up emotions, and that's the stuff we talked about earlier. Is like you can get caught up in this spiral of like, well, if it's going to be this song on the record, and you can start getting into like envy and coveting and all that kind of stuff. It's a
Yeah.
dangerous little circle, man.
Yeah.
In our business, as much as we can write and let it go to the point of like, okay, God, I trust you. Obviously, you may need to ring about it to your publisher if you have an opportunity to pitch it. But man, you can't force a song down somebody's throat.
Yeah.
And nothing reeks worse than desperation.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
That's good.
Play it cool, let it go, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And if it's a great song, it'll get cut and it'll be a single. Sometimes.
Yeah. They sometimes.
Sometimes
I like that. It depends. So all of that makes me think. I mean, that's got to be a moment the first time you do hear one of your songs on the radio,
Oh, it's crazy, man.
because after all of this roller coaster of up and down, and is this song gonna make it? Is this song gonna be a single? What is that like? Do you remember where you were the first time you heard your song on the radio?
Man, honestly, if it's like the first time I heard like a legit major label top 40 single, dude, that's just recently. I mean, I've had a handful of cuts and on major label artists, and I got to hear my single when I was doing the artist thing on radio, and that was cool. But it was different. Like hearing your first like major label country act sing your single on the radio on the top 40 countdown is amazing. And dude, honestly, my first time with that was with High Valley's Make You Mine.
Yeah.
And that was recent, man. It's like, so even the stuff I've had cut like with, Aldean and the other Parmalee cuts and like the Swan Brothers Carrie Underwood thing, those were all record cuts, which is so cool. And I'm so grateful. But the singles, man, have just started recently, man.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. I mean, it's crazy, dude. I remember the first time I heard High Valley on the record, man, I about ran off the road. Because, I love those guys. And Brad, talk about another guy that's been doing it for almost, Brad's only, 30?
Yeah.
And he's been doing it since he was 11 or 12. And when some people say that, they've been doing talent shows and stuff, like Brad and Curtis have like been on the road in other countries doing High Valley since they were like, I guess preteen or whatever years those are.
Yeah.
And for him too, it's like, man, it's like they look at those guys and people have never heard of them until all of a sudden now they're this emerging U.S. act. They don't know the other years they put into it. But not to stray from the question, it's amazing and I love it. And I've got to hear some of the current singles a bunch this week, and it never gets old.
Yeah.
And seeing your kids in the backseat singing along to one of your songs is cool. I will say my Ronnie Dunn song, the title of it, I'm not sure if I say the title of it on your podcast. This is a Christian show, but no, I'm kidding around.
It's an all ages, all audiences show.
Okay, well I said so. We've got a song on Ronnie's record, and it's his new single. It came out last week. It's called "Damn Drunk."
Yeah.
It's actually a love song, so I hope I don't offend anybody. The hook is, if you were a whiskey girl, I'd be a damn drunk. And it's literally the whole song. It's not this tongue-in-cheeky song. It's a serious love song. And Ronnie Dunn is probably the greatest voice in country music that I'm aware of.
Wow.
Past and present. He's just amazing and sings the fire of the song with conviction.
Yeah.
That being said,
Yeah.
with my little 4-year-old and 6-year-old in the backseat singing the song, I had to teach them when I was working on the demo. I was like, guys, when this hook comes around, y'all can say darn drunk. Because I was like, I know it. I was like, because I do not want y'all going into church or school and saying this. And so, man, honestly, and I hope this isn't theologically wrong, as a Christian, I really don't have a problem with that. I'm just going to be 100% honest.
Yeah.
That's real life, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can get uptight about this and that. And in its context, I love that hook. I love that song. I love what it means. And hopefully I don't offend anybody, but if I do, I still stand behind the song, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't want my kids saying the hook.
Right. That's pretty awesome. My daughter has just now gotten to the age, she's almost 2, and she can recite lyrics from songs. And she's had this one song that we produced for another band that was a single, and she's obsessed with it right now. And she will not stop singing it. And that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
So she, like, every night before we go to bed, every morning when we wake up, sing that song.
That's awesome.
So that's, to me, I don't know if you can relate with this, but that was almost cooler than hearing my song on the radio for the first time.
It is, man. I mean, I was literally, so for that Ronnie single, just because this is recent, this was like a week old.
Yeah.
So like the music video, my wife put it on her laptop or Mac, whatever it was, the other night. And my little girl out in the middle of our kitchen wanted to dance to that song because
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's a love song. And dude, it was like dancing my little 4-year-old girl while a song I was a part of co-writing, while the music videos playing in the background. It was a surreal moment.
Yeah.
It was more surreal because I was like, it just being there and have that moment with my little girl and her knowing the lyrics to the song. And it's just, it's weird cool, man, because seeing your kids be a part of it and they don't really realize what's going on. It's like bigger payoff than the other thing, than the single, you know?
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. I'm trying to be tough, but in those moments I'm like
tear and waterworks.
Yeah, man.
Dude, being a dad, man, makes us so sappy, man. Have you noticed that?
Oh, totally.
I wasn't a crier till I had kids, dude.
Yeah.
You if you catch the news, if you're bringing a soldier home to surprise his kid, man, I'm just like waterworks, man, because I'm just like, man, as a dad, what those guys do and then the surprise on their kid's face. But man, I swear it's being a dad just makes us so emotional, man. In that era, I think I had to go get my testosterone levels checked recently. I was like, why am I so emotional, doctor? I was good though, thank the Lord.
The symptoms. Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's been an awesome conversation. I'd love to just kind of end up, because you've had a pretty awesome epic story getting to where you're at, tons of hard work. I love that it's from one obsession to another obsession.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I've heard in this story is the stunt thing, and then that was an obsession, and it sounds like music is still that for
I think
you
have to be obsessed, man. I mean, I'm literally obsessed with music. I mean, like, I couldn't sleep Monday morning, 2:30 I woke up because I really wanted to put strings on this demo I'm working on. And literally, I live 45 minutes from Nashville. My office is in downtown Nashville on Music Row, and I got out of bed at 2:30, and I was in my office by close to 4, programming cello on a demo. And it's like, man, I think it's a good thing when you love it so much that it wakes you up at night and you can't go back to sleep because you really want to do a part on a song.
Yeah.
I think that's how you know you're hooked, man.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it takes, man. It's like, man, honestly, I think anything in life, man, any business, if you do the bare minimum and just show up for whatever the hours you're supposed to show up and then think you're just going to go home and be done with it for the night, I don't think you're going to be successful. At least, and let me rephrase that. I couldn't be successful that way. And dude, God's been so good for the stuff we have going on right now. But man, you know how it is, man. It's like in my mind, I'm still fighting to be successful. And I tell my wife that all the time. I'm like, I really want to be successful at this. She's like, are you crazy? Look what's happening. And I was like, yeah, but in my mind, I'm not there. You know what I mean? But I don't think that's a bad thing, because I feel like if I felt like I was there, I'd get complacent. Yeah. I'm very well aware of how many talented people are in town, and we get to write with it coming from LA. And it always makes me want to up my game, which increases my obsession.
Yeah. So you kind of answered this just by saying that, which is an awesome way to tie up the interview. But what it takes to be a successful songwriter, commercial songwriter nowadays, sounds like just complete and total obsession.
It does, man. I mean, for me, it's just persistence and obsession. And then, man, a lot of opportunities that happen, you may not see it in the moment, but man, if you're supposed to be on the books with somebody to write that day, take that write and do it, because you never know either what you're going to write that day, and I'll give an example of that in a second, or you never know 2 years down the road what that day and that relationship is going to lead to. Couple quick examples of that. There's a guy named David Fanning. David Fanning is Parmalee's producer with New Voices and also like Thompson Square and did Lindsay L stuff, and just fabulous producer, fabulous artist. I wrote with him 3 years ago. He's like, hey, there's this band Parmalee, I want you to write with them. And I just met David. So I took this write, and I think I had to move another write to do it, but I felt like I was supposed to do that. Okay, almost 4 years ago wrote this. And I remember that day thinking,
thanks for bumping my write that day.
Yeah, you're welcome, Leslie. I remember thinking that day, I was like, oh, we wrote a cool song. Okay, literally, dude, that song, Staring Down the Barrel, I swear it's 4 years ago. That's just now on their brand new record. Wasn't on the last record, but is out on the new record coming out. Okay, had I not taken that right that day, I wouldn't have built that relationship with David. Fast forward 2 years, David asked me about a month and a half ago, he's like, hey man, would you have any interest in co-producing my new record? And I was like flipping out, because I'm a fan of Fanning, I'm a fan of his artist work, and I love his production. So that opportunity came around. David and I spent about a month and a half in the studio. We just finished the record, hit Spotify later this month, and it's pretty dope. I love it. I'm super stoked.
So cool.
taking those opportunities and nurturing those relationships, man, just show up and do your thing that day.
Yeah.
Our Roots single, Parmley single, I remember that day I was working on another EP and I told my co-writer, I was like, man, I kind of hope our third doesn't show up today just because I really felt we need to work on some production stuff. Well, praise the Lord, our third, Jared Mullins, showed up and within a few hours had written Roots. Within a week, it was on hold and they cut it and put it on their new single. So you just never know, man.
Wow.
Be persistent, do more than's expected, outwork the other dude, and show up for your rides.
I love it, man. It's good stuff. It's Ben Stennis in the house.
Dude, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being had.
Yes, sir.
That's probably a horrible way to say that.
Yes. What a terrible ending to the show, to a great show.
Thank you for being here.
Dude, thanks, brother.
This has been the Full Circle Music Show. This was Ben Stennis on the show, Seth Mosley. Full Circle Music Show is produced by Full Circle Music Company with editing help from Jericho Scroggins. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes, leave us a good rating and a good review. And to find out more info on our music production mastery course, text the word produce, PRODUCE, to 44222. We'll see you next week.